Protests are intensifying in India over a ban on Muslim students wearing the hijab or veils in schools and colleges in the southern state of Kar-na-taka. Now, hundreds of students in the eastern city of Kolkata blocked roads and chanted slogans. Demonstrations have also been planned for the capital, New Delhi. Far-right Hindu students have held counter-protests, flocking to schools, taunting and heckling Muslim students. Violent clashes over the ban have prompted provincial authorities to shut educational institutions for 3 days. Demonstrations erupted after Kar-na-taka state ordered schools and colleges to deny entry to Muslim girls wearing the hijab. State top court has begun hearing a petition against the ban. India's constitution does not allow authorities to discriminate on the basis of religion, caste, creed, and gender. Muslims have been targeted since a right-wing Hindu nationalist government took the helm of power in 2014. Joining us now from London is Mr. Masood Shahzadeh, head of the Islamic Human Rights Commission, for more on the story. Hello, Mr. Shahzadeh. Always a pleasure to check in with you. Hope you're doing well, sir. Is it a bad time right now to be a Muslim in India?
Unfortunately, that's the case. It's a bad time to be anything but a Hindu in India, i.e. the Christians are also being minoritized, and what is happening, unfortunately, the power of the movement of Hindutva and the BJP, which is a supporter of this movement, and being in power in India, has actually created the environment where the ideas that are going around and being promoted is India is a Hindu nation and everybody else is a second-class citizen. And unfortunately, we have seen laws which have been implemented during the last years, which actually strengthen this. This is unfortunately the sort of disowning anyone in India which is not a Hindu, and this is very dangerous. There has been a lot of observers from different backgrounds have identified that if this continues, we are going to see the beginning of the structures for genocide to take place in India. And if that happens in such a large nation with such a large population, it will be it will be totally disaster. But we are seeing the implementation of the sort of basis for genocide to take place.
And we hear of Islamophobia lately. We hear it in the UK, in France, in the US. We're hearing about it in India. You don't hear any of these governments though, Mr. Shahzadeh, address it with any kind of urgency. My question to you, could you imagine right now if a college in India had denied entry to Jewish girls or Jewish boys wearing a yarmulke on a Jewish religious day? There would be outrage in all of these countries.
Well, absolutely. But I think what is happening, and I'm glad you actually made it wider than India, because what is really happening, a politician, bankrupt politician from ideology to save and prosper their own nation, are using otherization and in particular Islamophobia to mobilize support for themselves where they don't deserve it, because they're not really addressing the real issues, be it in Britain, be it in France. So, bankrupt politicians are going towards racism. This is what happened in Nazi Germany, and indeed what happened in former Yugoslavia. With a disastrous sort of impact, not just on those minorities which were targeted, but on the whole society. And unfortunately, we see some sort of we're going through of Islamophobia being sort of further strengthened, and this environment of hate to be created. But you know, as soon as that story becomes the old story, the next story becomes another new story, rather than looking at the direction that these stories, disconnecting these stories with the dots, and actually recognizing that we are sleepwalking towards genocide.
Thank you, sir. Stay safe. Always a pleasure to check in with you from London. Mr. Masood Shahjada, their head of Islamic Human Rights Commission, joining us.